You are listening to Larry Conners, USA.
You want answers?
I think I'm entitled.
You want answers?
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth.
This is Larry Conners USA. Larry Conners USA.
I woke up this morning, got myself a gun. Mama always said I'd be the chosen one.
I've seen this movie before, and it's all about deterrence. And when the green light's on and the messaging is, if you come, you can stay, they're going to come. I predict this. And by summer, you're going to see, as my governor just said, probably, somewhere around 1 million people trying to get into this country illegally. And as I've said before, it's ironic that you can get into this country illegally easier than you get a tour of this Capitol right behind me.
That is Congressman Michael McCall, Republican of Texas. March 10, 2021. And the congressman saying, at the rate we're going, and I've seen this movie before, we will have 1 million illegals coming through our border by summer. 1 million. I don't think that's an exaggeration when you look at what's happening now. And the Biden administration pretty much still ignoring it. They're ignoring the crisis they got at the border. They're trying to rephrase it. They're trying to say, well, yeah, we got a few problems, but it's just a little bug we need to work out. Senator Cotton pointed out yesterday, any time the left begins to say, well, we need, or actually he said any politician that says we just need to change the messaging, there's not a message issue, there's an issue. And they're going to continue coming across. We're going to examine that in a great detail coming forward in the next 2 hours, and especially reference kids. Remember the Democrats crying out about take care of the kids, don't separate them from their parents, and we have to take care of the kids? Well, these facilities for these children are now way overcrowded. Even CNN had to admit there's some 3,000 being crowded into a facility area meant for 1,200 max. So they're shipping them elsewhere. They're finally acknowledged. Even CNN had to admit, yeah, I think we've got some issue down there. And, of course, the Department of Homeland Security now, Alejandro Mayorkas, should say, was now saying, oh, I want volunteers. All volunteers come forward. Mayorkas, I should say. And at the same time, 23 House Republicans sent a letter to him demanding to know how many border crossers are testing positive for COVID and then being released into the U.S. We told you about this previously. They are running some tests in some areas, but there's nothing they can do. So they prove they've got COVID. You know what they tell them? Will you get where you're going? Will you please quarantine? Fat chance. And you try to get your kids into school in some states? Nope, not going to happen. By the way, to that point, we're going to be joined later this hour by Christopher Bedford, senior editor with The Federalist. He penned an excellent column pointing out COVID is not the danger for your children. Your children are not really in danger of COVID. They're a real threat to them, and their health and safety and more would be not COVID, selfish teachers, teachers' unions, and progressives. Speaking of progressives, they are in the process, and it's so exciting to watch CNN cover this. I know you're not doing it. I'm just trying to keep an eye on it, but they're so excited. The gargantuan package, as they're describing it, expected to get final approval today and would dramatically reshape the U.S. economy. They're talking about that bill. You know the one. You know, the COVID relief thing. They tried to say it's COVID relief. They peg it at $1.9 trillion. I say you call it $2 trillion. It's not really going to help the American public, less than 9%. It is the most progressive bill they've ever passed in history, and they acknowledge it, even to the extent that I think Bernie Sanders is a little embarrassed. We'll get into that as well. By the way, in the meantime, President Biden You know, they've said Jen Psaki has been asked repeatedly, when is he going to hold an official news conference? 48 plus days now, he hasn't. She said, well, you can shout questions at him. So now today, his 48th day in office, they were shouting questions at him about a news conference toward the end of a visit at a hardware store in the nation's capital that benefited from his Paycheck Protection Program. They were shouting questions, and immediately he was rushed away. Rushed away. He didn't have a chance to answer anything. They weren't going to let him do it. And on top of that, they start shooing the press away. Those of you who voted for this guy, this leftist movement, I hope you're happy, because it's going to blow up in your face. It's already hurting many, and maybe even you. We got a lot to cover the next 2 hours. Lock and load. Ready. On the right.
You can email Larry at LarryConnersUSA@gmail.com. LarryConnersUSA@gmail.com.